it.
I've never seen Friday.
I voted for Trump.
What?
Twice.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 comedy horror, The Blackening. The film is directed by Tim Story and it stars Grace Byers, Jermaine Fowler, Melvin Gregg, ex-Mayo, Antoinette Robertson and Sequoia Walls. Right, okay. This is a film that is a little bit of a satire of slasher films. It's told, if you like, from a black person's perspective. The tagline is, "We can't all die first," which refers to the fact that, the black characters in films like this usually die first. And it focuses on a group of friends, all of them black, who head up to the cabin in the woods scenario for like a weekend of fun and all that kind of stuff. And whilst there, they are confronted or introduced to a board game called The Blackening. They are then forced to play by a sinister character that essentially threatens their lives if they refuse to play. And essentially, the survivor of this encounter is the one deemed to be the blackest, I suppose. Right, what are my thoughts on The Blackening? Well, I remember seeing the trailer for this one a few months ago, and I wasn't really sure what to make of it. It was obviously very clearly, a bit of a satire and all that kind of stuff. And after checking this film out now and giving it a watch, I have to say, while there are some redeeming qualities to be had here, this is actually, other than the unique premise of the film, it adds very little to the genre, the slasher genre or the comedy horror genre. It retreads old ground that we've seen many times before on horror comedies like the scary movies and all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't feel like it brings any fresh jokes to the table. It's certainly from my perspective. Now, I don't think this is a bad film. I think there were a couple of times I thought maybe it was in bad taste here and there, but I don't think it was a bad film. It wasn't poorly made. It was, good production values. The cast were all, doing what they were supposed to do. I didn't necessarily connect to any of these characters. Normally in a film like this, you are supposed to kind of relate to a couple of the characters and then you kind of end up rooting for them. I didn't get that at all with any of these characters. I didn't necessarily click with any of them. I didn't necessarily like many of them, to be perfectly honest. Some of them weren't likable at all. And figuring out who the killer is not that difficult, to be fair. In fact, it's particularly easy. So the film doesn't necessarily give you any surprises here. It doesn't even really deliver on the horror aspect. You've got this killer running around firing crossbows at them, so there's a few arrows getting stuck in things here and there, but there's not much in the way of horror either. Now, for me, a good comedy horror has to deliver on both. Has to be funny, and it has to be scary. Now, granted, there are moments in this film where you'll have a chuckle. Even though some of the humour I felt was forced here and there, inevitably, I did find myself having a chuckle at this film. I think this film is more successful as a comedy than a horror, because I didn't feel scared at any point watching this film. And I think that's down to a few reasons. The fact that I didn't really care about any of the characters, and number two, they didn't necessarily build the tension and hold it. For me, as I've said, a comedy horror has to deliver on both sides, and this film just didn't really. It obviously borrows heavily from other films in this genre. It parodies them. But it feels almost like the parody is maybe 10 years late. It doesn't necessarily feel massively current, this film. It feels like an idea that was maybe generated or created a good few years ago that has only just managed to get made now. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it just doesn't feel fresh and modern, if you like, the idea, the concept here. So, I mean, it's... Take it as it is, really. If you like slasher films, you like parodies, you like horror comedies, there will be some things here for you to enjoy. There are some unique elements to the film. You know, the whole concept of the Blackening board game is absolutely ridiculous, and to hear these characters debating, some of the issues connected to this board game and some of the things it's suggesting and some of the questions that it gives them. In particular, there's one question where basically you have to answer these questions. If you don't, there's like consequences. And one of the questions is like a Friends question. Now, there is literally, I don't think any black characters ever in Friends. Not that I've watched it particularly, but there's like a specific question on the sitcom Friends, and they're all like, "Well, I've never watched it, and I've never watched it," but they all managed to answer the question. So I found some of that kind of amusing and funny, associated some of the questions. But I don't know, it just didn't grip me, and I suppose it's also one of them films that if you've watched the trailers, I mean, I think literally the best moments are in the trailers. It's one of those that doesn't offer anything else beyond really some of the highlights it shows you in the trailers. There's very little else that the film has got to offer in regards to originality, fun, or horror. So I think with this film, I think it could have been a lot better if we'd have had some memorable characters. I think it could have been a lot better if they'd have really cranked up the scares and the horror. Because I think, they did kind of nail, I mean, the unique concept and some of the humour associated with it. They did nail here and there. It's just they just failed to deliver on memorable characters, a memorable killer, and some memorable horror. It didn't deliver on those things really. So yeah, that's my review for The Blackening. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to call back on the channel for plenty more content very, very soon.